Think about the last bridge you crossed or the highway you took to get to work. We rely on this stuff every single day, but keeping it all from crumbling, well, that's a massive challenge. The price tag is just staggering, and governments are having to get pretty creative to find the cash. So today, we're going to dive into one of the most popular and, yeah, one of the most controversial solutions out there.
So, here's the core problem. We have this huge funding gap. And look, this isn't just some number on a spreadsheet. It's the reason you're stuck in traffic jams, why shipments get delayed, and it's a real safety concern. So when the usual government piggy bank is running on empty, where on earth does the money for these absolutely vital projects come from? Get a load of this. Way back in 2008, it was estimated that there was about $400 billion in private money just sitting on the sidelines, looking for a good place to be invested. Now, for governments that were strapped for cash, that number was a huge light bulb moment. They started thinking, what if we could get the private sector to help fund our public infrastructure? And that line of thinking, well, it leads us straight to something called the public-private partnership, or what everyone just calls a PPP. It's become a go-to tool for these massive projects, but honestly, the name itself can be a little confusing. So what exactly is it?
Okay, so the official definition from the Federal Highway Administration has this one crucial phrase: more private sector participation than is traditional. And that right there, that's the key. This isn't full-on privatization, where the government just sells off a road. Nope, the public still owns it. A PPP is really a long-term, very specific partnership, all laid out in a contract.
Let's use an analogy. Think about renovating your house. A traditional project is like you hiring an architect, then a separate builder, then a plumber. You manage all of them yourself, and if there's a mistake or a delay, you're the one paying for it. A PPP, on the other hand, is like hiring one single company to design, build, and even maintain your new kitchen for the next 30 years. You just make a series of agreed-upon payments. That one company, they take on all the headaches and the risk if the oven breaks or if costs suddenly shoot up.
And that's what this all comes down to, really. Risk. It's not just about sharing the work, it's about sharing the financial risk. And the fundamental question, the one that every one of these deals hinges on, is always this: who pays when things go wrong?
The main concept here is called risk transfer. I know, it sounds a little technical, but the idea is actually pretty simple. You basically assign a specific risk, like, say, construction costs going way over budget, to the partner who is best equipped to prevent that from happening. And that means the contract has to spell out, in painful, nitty-gritty detail, exactly who is on the hook for what, long before a single shovel ever hits the ground.
Okay, so this is what that risk transfer actually looks like in the real world. Think about it. Who's better at navigating local laws and buying up land? The government, right? So they keep those risks. But who is better at managing a tight construction budget and keeping a project on schedule? Probably the private company. So they take on those risks, plus the long-term grind of maintenance. Each side is just playing to its strengths.
But as you can probably imagine, this whole model is not a silver bullet, not at all. For every promise of efficiency and savings, there's a potential pitfall, and this has sparked a whole lot of debate. So let's take a fair, balanced look at both sides of the argument.
All right, so the people who love PPPs, they point to some really big potential wins. First, you get access to that huge pool of private money we talked about. Then there's the argument that the private sector's focus on the bottom line brings in all this efficiency, fresh innovation, and can get projects built way faster. And of course, the big one, transferring those huge financial risks away from us, the taxpayers.
But, and this is a big but, the critics bring up some really serious red flags. Probably the biggest one is locking the public into these incredibly long contracts. The I-495 Capital Beltway project in Virginia, for example, has an 85-year agreement. I mean, just stop and think about that for a second. What was the world like 85 years ago? We're talking before the internet, before the interstate highway system was even fully built. That is a massive loss of public control and flexibility, not to mention all the worries about high tolls and what happens if that private company goes bankrupt. And really, this quote just nails the absolute heart of the critics' argument. How can anyone sitting here today possibly know what our transportation needs are going to be in, say, 2080? Self-driving cars, flying vehicles, who knows? Locking ourselves into a contract for that long is a huge gamble, and that challenge hangs over every single one of these deals.
Okay, so with stakes this high, you can bet that experts and lawmakers have put a ton of thought into how to do this right. The goal is to make sure that if a state or a city decides to go down the PPP road, the deal is actually structured to benefit the public in the long run.
So experts have pretty much landed on 4 key principles for getting these deals right. First, be informed. A desperate decision made in the middle of a budget crisis is almost never a good one. Second, the public interest has to be the #1 priority, always. Third, you've got to think long-term. A deal that looks fantastic today could be a total disaster 30 years from now. And finally, the rules for bidding have to be crystal clear and totally transparent. That's the only way to ensure fairness and get the best possible value for taxpayers.
And all of this, it really leaves us with one big, crucial question. Public-private partnerships, they offer a really powerful tool, but they demand incredible diligence and foresight. As we look at the roads and bridges we all depend on, finding that perfect balance, that sweet spot between private sector innovation and long-term public control, might just be one of the biggest challenges we face.